Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to the session on computer organization. We have seen certain. We have started with the hardwired control system organization, where we identified the hardware that is required to develop a hardware wired control unit, and we have seen how the clock and the instruction register together can be used to generate certain control signals. And we saw what happens during execution of an instruction. And we saw that from time cycle T0 to T2, it is going to be the same for all three types of instructions: the memory reference, the register reference, and the IO instruction. After time cycle T2, depending on the value of D7 and the value of I, D7 are the D7 is the decoded output from the instruction register. We give the input bits, instruction register bits 12 to 14 for a decoding circuit, and the circuit generates D0 to D7. And the MSB of the instruction register bit 15 goes into the flip-flop I. The decoded output D7 and the flip-flop I determine the type of instruction, and we have seen that when D7 is 0 and D7 I value is 0, it refers to a memory reference instruction which has direct memory addressing mode. And with D7 equal to 0 and I equal to 1, we have an indirect addressing mode based register memory reference instruction. And then if D7 value is 1, it can either be a register reference instruction or a IO instruction. And if the value of D7 equal to 1 and I equal to 0 indicates a register reference instruction. So this is the condition that satisfies what type of instruction each of these control inputs may generate. And we have then looked into a list of register reference instructions. There are 12 register reference instructions, each of them determined by the bit I, which is high in the instruction register from 0 to 11 bits, that are 12 bits. So those 12 bits, depending on whichever bit is high, one of the register reference instructions is executed. And then we looked into memory reference instruction. When we take into account memory reference instructions, we see if the value of I is 1, it refers to an indirect memory access. And in indirect memory access, at time cycle T3, we see that one of the memory reference is completed at time cycle T3, and the other memory reference which is required is completed at time cycle T2 itself. So, by the end of time cycle T3, whether it is direct or indirect memory access, the address of the variable or the data is available in the address register. And from time cycle T4 onwards, both direct and indirect memory reference instructions carry out the same functionality. To synchronize this, at time cycle T3, for a direct memory access, we do not do any operation and nothing is performed so that it can be synchronized. This is what we have seen in the earlier sessions. So this is a list of all memory reference instructions, what happens at what timing cycle. So this entire thing we have seen. The next is a group of instructions which is used for input output. So I am going to now understand how an IO operation works. Before we understand that, let me introduce you to how input and output is transmitted in a how input and output are transmitted in any IO machine. Now in a computer, we have the CPU, and the CPU works in a different timing scale. The IO devices work on a different timing scale. IO devices are predominantly slower than the CPU. So it is always going to be a fact that IO devices will be slower than the IO devices will always be slower than CPU and memory devices. So to synchronize this, we need some other circuit that can help me deliver input or output at the speed in which the computer operates. So every time we try to connect two devices that are operating at different speeds, we are going to use an equipment in between that can help us connect, called as the interface. An interface is an equipment or a device that helps you to connect two devices or equipments which operate at different timing. So this is what an interface is. An interface is a device or a circuit that helps to connect two different devices that operate at different speeds. Now the CPU is going to operate in a different speed and IO devices are going to operate in a different speed. So to connect both of these equipments, we are going to use an interface circuit. So any computer, when it tries to communicate with the IO device, it will communicate through an interface, either an input interface or an output interface. The input interface is called as a transmitter interface. The input interface is called as a transmitter interface because it is trying to push something from the external device into the computer. It is trying to transmit some information inside the computer. So it is called as a transmitter interface. And the output device is connected through a receiver interface. The receiver interface is responsible for receiving data from the computer and giving it to some receiving device. So there are two different interfaces which are required to connect any IO device. Now in an IO device, all IO devices have serial communication. Say for example, this is a IO device and this is the CPU. I am going to place an interface in between the CPU and the IO device. In this structure, the IO device is called as a serial communication device and CPU is a parallel communication device. What do you mean by serial communication and parallel communication? In serial communication, when data is transmitted from one part of the circuit into another part, it is done serially. Imagine I have got the value 1010. This 1010 will be transmitted through a single wire of the form, this is 1, this is 0, 1 and 0. This is the bit that is transmitted as voltage in serial communication. In parallel communication, if I have the same value 1010, I am going to have 4 different lines through which this data is going to be sent. The first line indicates a value of 1 being sent at the first clock pulse, and at the first clock pulse this sends a value 0, the third wire carries a value 1 and the fourth wire carries a value 0. So all 4 bits are transmitted parallelly in one clock pulse in a parallel communication device. CPU is a parallel communication device and all IO devices are serial communication devices. So when the CPU tries to take some data from an IO device, it has to convert that serial information which it receives bit by bit It should consolidate that data and send it parallelly inside the computer. So that is what an interface is going to do. Now this interface will receive this serial information and it will send out this parallel information. So this is what all interfaces do. Now, to operate this interface, we are going to use some additional registers or called as flags or flip-flops. A flag usually is a binary value which says either yes or no. Now I am going to use certain flags for designing my interface and for communicating with the CPU. So imagine I've got an output device which is connected to, what is the interface I will connect with? It will connect with the receiver interface, and I can have an input device which is connected to a transmitter interface. So I have the output device connected to a receiver interface, the input device connected to a transmitter interface. Now the data, every time the CPU tries to receive data, it always receives it in its scribbling pad or the accumulator. So I am going to have my accumulator here which should receive my data. So my accumulator is placed so that it can receive data. Now this interface, this is a serial value. Whatever you send here is, till here it is serial communication. And here you have parallel communication. So the interface is now going to convert serial data into parallel data. When it receives serial data from parallel data, it consolidates that into one 8-bit data and puts it into a register. Do you remember what register we used during the design phase for collecting input information? Remember, we used an 8-bit register to indicate input and output. So that register INPR is the input register. INPR is the input register which is going to receive my data from the interface. So in interface, the input terminal will start sending bit by bit to the interface. The interface will collect bit by bit. It will wait till it finishes collection of all 8 bits, and once it has collected all the 8 bits, it is going to put it inside the input register. Clear? Now, the same thing is applicable to the output unit also. The output unit is not capable of receiving all 8 bits at the same time. So, when the computer sends out 8 bits to an output unit, it sends it to the output register. The output register is read by the receiver interface, and this receiver interface waits till the output unit is capable of receiving all bits. So, after it has received 8 bits from the output register, it sends out bit by bit into the output unit. So, this communication is serial in nature. And whatever is happening in between the input registers and the accumulator is going to be a parallel communication. Now, because the input and the output units are not fast enough, the accumulator cannot keep waiting for these inputs. in the instruction execution, if you see at time cycle T4 or at time cycle T3 of the execution, we identify that it is an IO operation. Now, during that IO operation, like for other examples, we have seen memory reference instructions, we have seen register reference instructions. These instructions, they are capable of completing that instruction either at time cycle T4 or at T5 or at T6. So T6 is the maximum number of clock cycles memory reference or register reference instructions are using. But when we involve an input or an output device which is slower in nature, we may not be able to complete it in the stipulated time scale. If we keep waiting for bit by bit, if the computer is going to wait, if the CPU is going to wait bit by bit for an input device to render its input, then we may not be able to complete that instruction within T15 time scale. So to avoid that, what the input and the output unit do is, once the instruction starts executing, it starts receiving the data bit by bit and it puts it inside the input register. Now once the input register has got all bits, 8 bits ready, only then the input device sends a signal to the CPU, and once the signal is received by the CPU, it then starts reading the data from the input register. Otherwise, it will not perform any operation. It will stand still for that particular clock cycle. Clear? Now, if the CPU is performing some other task, it will continue performing that task or it will start execution of the next instruction until the input is readily available at the input register. So now once the input register is ready, it has the responsibility of informing the accumulator using some signal. The signal is given using a flag bit which is called as FGI or the input flag. Now this input flag is going to be 1 if the data is readily available. Its value is going to be 0 if the data is not readily available at the input register. So if the input register is full, the interface will set the value of FGI to 1, indicating that data is readily available. So once the accumulator reads the data inside the accumulator, this FGI is set to 0, indicating that the data is no more available. So every time the interface tries to read something, it will hold it in the buffer and it will put inside the input register. Now imagine the input register has got some data and the accumulator has not taken it, the FGI value is set to 1. In that scenario, until the FGI becomes 0, the input register content will not be changed. Even if the input device is receiving some other input, the interface will hold it in its buffer, or buffer is a temporary storage. The buffer will store that data until this input is taken by the accumulator. So until that time, until the FGI value is set back into 0 by the accumulator, this value is going to be held in the input register. Once the accumulator receives that data and sets the FGI to 0, then the interface will send the next 8 bits into the input register. Clear? Now the same is going to be applicable for the output register also. For the output register, however, I have a flag named FGO. Now this FGO is going to operate in reverse. Every time the data is available readily, FGO is going to be 1. So the output flag is initially set to 1, because anytime the accumulator has some data ready, it need not wait for the output device. It can directly put that value into the output register. So its value is always set to 1 so that it is ready for receiving data. Now once the FGO is 1 and accumulator has some data readily available, it is sent into the output register. When output register receives that input from the accumulator, it sets the value of FGO to 0, indicating that it has already received some data from the accumulator. It is still trying to send it to the output device and it has not completed its sending operation. Until it completes its sending operation, the FGO will be set to 0. Until the FGO is 0, the accumulator cannot send another value to the output device. Is that clear? So these FGI and FGO are called as flags. Flags are bits that can indicate the happening or not happening of certain events. They help us generate some control information based on these flag values. Now these flags are in the hardware, they are designed using flip-flops. So flip-flops are going to be used for holding that flag values. Now we have the transmitter interface which is trying to send some data into the input register, and the input register gives a value, the initial value of the input register is 0 because data is not available at the input register. Once data becomes available at the input register, its value becomes 1. When its value becomes 1, the accumulator looks into the input flag value and then it starts receiving that data. Once it has copied the data from the input register inside the accumulator, this value is again set back to 0. And once the accumulator receives and processes that data, the FGO initially has a value of 1, indicating that it is always ready to receive output. Now when the value is 1 and output is sent to the output register, when the output register receives any value from the accumulator, it resets this FGO. Resets means to clear off that value or to set a 0 value. When I say reset, it means to clear off that value 1. So when I reset FGO, it becomes 0, and when that becomes 0, the output register sends it to the interface. The interface sends the same 8 bits bit by bit into the output device. Is that clear? Now, once it has sent everything into the interface, this value is set back to 1 to indicate that it is ready for taking more inputs. Now, with this idea in mind, we are going to start understanding certain instructions. Now, when does let me show the So this shows the input-output configuration. So I can either use a keyboard, a printer or a monitor or a mouse. All of these are going to be input-output terminals, and I am going to have a receiver interface and a transmitter interface which are capable of storing serial information, and they are capable of transmitting serially. And then you have the computer registers and the flip-flops. The accumulator is given there. Output register and the input register are present. The flags FGI and FGO are present. Now, based on these values, we are going to see how an input and an output instruction can be executed. When we look at input-output instruction execution, at what control information are these instructions executed? If you look back inside this, you can understand that all of the control information for all input-output instructions is when D7 is 1 and when I value is 1. So both D7 and I value are 1. So I am not indicating them as D7 dash. Dash comes only when the value is 0. So I have D7 and I, and at time cycle T3 I need to start my input output instruction. Just like how we did for the register reference instructions, we assumed that D7 dash I dash T3, which is responsible for register reference instruction, can be considered as R. The same way for IO instruction, I am going to consider this value as P. Clear? Now this is going to be P, and for every IO instruction, after completion of IO instruction, I should clear my sequence counter to start ticking from time cycle T0 once again. Apart from this, I have bits of the instruction register, bits 0 to 11, to indicate the actual operation code for instruction execution. The input output does not have many instructions. It has got only 6 instructions under the input output category. So bits 0 to 11 are not completely used. We use only bits 6 to 11. Only the bits 6 to 11 are used for input output instruction. So this is 6. 6 to 11 are used for input output instruction. These can be indicated as B6, B7, B8, etc. So our control information for all IO instructions will be of the form R, B, I, where I indicates one of the bit in instruction register 6 to 11. So this is what we are going to see for IO instructions. We have 6 IO instructions. We will be dealing with those 6 IO instructions in the next session. For this session, I will conclude here. So thank you one and all. Hoping to see you all very soon. Thank you.